ॐ शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. वागर्ताविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्त प्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी द्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलाधरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടും നീരക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മന്യനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Revati, can you do 84?
Sure. क्वचिततपनो पराककाले पुरिनितत्तत्कृतवर्म कामसूनो यदुकुलमहिलावृत सुतीर्थं समुपकतोऽसि समन्तपञ्चकाख्यं बहुतरजनताहिताय तत्र त्वमपि पुनन् विनिमज्यति तीर्थतोऽयं द्विजगणपरिमुक्तविक्तराशिः सममिलता कुरु पाण्डवादिमित्रैः तव खलु तयिता जनैः स्मेता त्रिपतसुधा त्वयि काडभक्तिपारा तदुतितभवदाहृति प्रकारैः अधिमुमुते सममन्या भामिनीभिः ततनुष भगवन्निरीक्ष्य कोपान् अधिकुदुकादु बहं यमानयित्वा चिरतर विरहौतुराङ्गरेखाः पशुभवतु सरसं त्वमन्वयासीः.
Revati, the tune is slightly off, but that's okay. You can continue if you.
Arabingo.
And next on the Sapadi Chabhavadi Kshanotsav.
That's what I am also thinking. Something wrong with that. Okay. Sabadi Chabhavadi Kshanotmena Pramushitamanagritamnitam Vininam Adirasa Parimukta Kanchulike Parishaya Hrityatare Kuche Nyalaishihi Ribujana Kalakaika Punarme Samuha Kadairiyati Idi Krita Parirampane Tvayitrak Adivivasha Kaluradika Nililye Abakata Virahavyatastata Tastatataha Ragasi Vitayatata Tatpapodam Paramasukachitatmako Hamatme Udayatu vas Pudameva Chedasiti.
And the second, third and fourth transition, right? It's a ya comes. Ahamatmet yudhayatu.
Oh, ahamat yudhayatu.
Ahamat met. So Paramasuka Chidatma Koham Atmet Yudayatu.
Okay. Paramasuka Chitatmako Hamatmitya Metyatu Metyutayatu.
And the Itkapram you comes. Atmet Yudayatu.
Okay. Sukaras parimicharito viyokaha kimapi pura bhavatu tattvavopateshai
Uddhavopa. Pura bhavat uddhavopa.
Kimapi pura pava uddhavopateshaihi samapavatamutah parantu dasam paramasuka kaikyamayi bhavat vishinta munivara nivahaistavada pitra duridasamaya subhani pricyamanaihi tvayi sati kimitam supantaraiririti uruhasitairavi yajitastadashau.
Even there also, Revati, I think the Shubhantarair iti and Ura Hasitair, if you have it, I think we joined it, right? So it becomes Shubhantarairiat Yuru.
Shubhantarairi Uru.
Shubhantarair it Yuru.
Oh, Shubhantarairit Uru Hasi. Okay.
Hasitair, yeah. Keep going.
Sumahatiya jane vitayamane pramutita mitra jane saswaihava sahaiva kopaha yadujana mahitastrimasa bhavatanu shankrasam pureva bejuhu.
Shangha, and the ga is a full ga, that's why it was not quite landing. Shangha rasam.
Bhavatuna Shankarasam Pureva Bejuhu Vyapahamasamaya Sametya Radham Tridamupagukya Nirishya Vitaketam Pramutita Hritaya Puram Prayataha Pavana Pureshwara Pahimam Katipyaha.
Krishnaya
Parabrahmane Namaha.
Okay, so let's jump into Dasakam 86. I think we did 4. Yeah. So start with 5. Oh, sorry.
3 வரைக்கும் தான் முடிச்சோம்.
I think we 3 வரைக்கும் தான் முடிச்சோம்.
Oh, 3 வரைக்கும் தான் முடிச்சோம். Yeah, I think I just told the story of the 4.
Story
Okay.
of 4.
Okay. So so Narayani, you and Anu, you can be students. Okay. Stanza 4. त्वय्यायाते तजाते किल कुरु सदसि द्यूतके संयतायाः क्रन्दन्त्या याज्ञसेन्याः सखरुणमकृताश्चेलमालामनन्ताम् अह्नान्तप्राप्तशर्वांशजमुनिचकित द्रौपदी चिन्तितोत प्राप्तः शाकानमश्नन् मुनिगणमकृताः तृप्तिमन्तं वनान्ते. This is where the 2 stories of Draupadi we saw last time. So, त्वय्या यातेत जाते किल कुरु सदसि, द्यूतके संयतायाः, क्रन्दन्त्या, so 2 ins coming, क्रन्दन्त्या याज्ञसेन्याः, सकरुणम akritash, if you want to break that ma, सकरुणम akritash चेल मालाम अनंताम. त्वय्यायाते तजाते किल कुरु सदसि द्यूतके संयतायाः क्रन्दन्त्या याज्ञसेन्याः सकरुणमकृताश्चेलमालामनन्ताम्.
त्वय्यायाते तजाते किल कुरु सदसि द्यूतके संयतायाः क्रन्दन्त्या याज्ञसेन्याः सकरुणमकृताः चेलमालामनन्ताम्.
And so Narayani, and the Yajnasenyaha kapro, there's a comma, and then the Sakaranam Akritaha is there, and you put a ish to join them. Akritash.
Oh, okay. त्वय्यायाते तजाते किल कुरु सदसि द्यूतके संयतायाः क्रन्दन्त्या याज्ञसेन्याः सकरुणमकृताश्चेलमालामनन्ताम्.
त्वय्यायाते तजाते किल कुरु सदसि द्यूतके संयतायाः क्रन्दन्त्या याज्ञसेन्याः सकरुणमकृतश्चेलमालामनन्ताम्. त्वय्यायाते तजाते किल कुरु सदसि द्यूतके संयतायाः क्रन्दन्त्या याज्ञसेन्याः सकरुणमकृतश्चेलमालामनन्ताम्.
And a small correction on the 4th line. Sakaranam Akritash. I think we said Akritash. Tash. Okay.
सकरुणमकृताश्चेलमालामनन्ताम्.
Annanta Prapta Sharvamshaja Muni Chakita Draupadi Chintitota. So no pause there, comma then. Praptaha is there, put a ish. Praptash Shakanamashnan Muni Ganam Akritaha. So it is that is there, remove it, put a visarikanda comma. Muni Ganam Akritaha Triptimantam Vanante. अह्नान्तप्राप्त शर्वांशज मुनिचकित द्रौपदी चिन्तितोत प्राप्तः शाकानमश्नन् मुनिगणमकृताः तृप्तिमन्तं वनान्ते.
अन्नान्तप्राप्त शर्वांशज मुनिचकित द्रौपदी चिन्तितोत प्राप्तः शाकानमश्नन् मुनिगणमकृताः Akritaha dane?
Akritaha, yeah, and the comma is there.
Munigana Triptimantam Banante Annanta Prapta Sharvamsha Jamuni Chakitat Draupadi Chintitota Prapta Shakanamashnan Munigana Makritaha Triptimantam Banante.
अन्नान्त प्राप्त शर्वांशज मुनिचकित द्रौपदी चिन्तितोत प्राप्त शाकानमश्नन् मुनिगणमकृताः तृप्तिमन्तं वनान्ते. अन्नान्तप्राप्त सर्वांशज मुनिचकित द्रौपदी चिन्तितोऽथ प्राप्त शाकानमश्नन् मुनिगणमकृताः तृप्तिमन्तं वनान्ते.
Stanza five.
ராஜேஷ் ஒரே ஒரு கொஸ்டின்.
ஆ.
அந்த பிராப்த ஷாகான் டபுள் என்னன்னு போட்டிருக்கு.
Shakanna mashnan.
ஓகே ஓகே டபுள்
Double na, yeah. One in and one na. Shakanna mashnan.
என்னோடல ஷாகான் அப்படின்னு டபுள் போட்டிருக்கு.
But both the nas will be together. So one of them is an in, one of them is a na.
Okay.
Stanza 5. युध्योद्योगेत मन्त्रे मिलति सति वृतः फल्गुनेन त्वमेकः कौरव्ये दत्तसैन्यः करिपुरमगमो दौत्यकृत् पाण्डवार्तं भीष्मद्रोणादिमान्ये तव खलु वचने धिक्कृते कौरवेण व्यावृण्वन् विश्वरूपं मुनिसदसि पुरीं क्षोभयित्वा गतो भूः. So now two different stories are happening here. So one, of course, the preparations for war is all happening, right? After the all this 12 years, Vanavasam, all of that is not covered, right? So the preparations for the war is happening. So Krishna is one day sleeping. So both Duryodhana and Arjuna come to visit Krishna. So you all know that. So Duryodhana comes first and he's sitting. He thinks because of the pride, he was sitting at the head of Krishna. And Arjuna comes, he's then sitting at the feet of Krishna, right? And then we all also know from that Yogindranam Tvadangesh from the 100th chapter 10th, it says, more than your head, your Padamulam is where all the rishis and all the great people are. So of course, when Krishna opened his eyes, he saw Arjuna first. And then, Krishna then asks Arjuna, what do you want? Because he says, I saw Arjuna first. Arjuna is also younger, so I have to give him the first choice. So initially, Duryodhana says, okay. And then Arjuna says, I just want you. I want you to be in my side. So Krishna will say, okay, I'll be on your side. And then he says the other option is you can have all the army. So Duryodhana says, of course, I'll take the Yadava army, right? So I think this is, this we're going to see in the next, when we do the 90th chapter, if we have time, or whenever 89th chapter, the first stanza itself starts with only that sometimes with Bhagavan and Narayana, you only have two choices. Either you only ask for the Lord, or you ask for all the material benefits that come along with it. You cannot tell, I want you and I want all the material benefits. It doesn't go together. We will see why when we cover the next chapter. But anyway, so here Duryodhana, gets this, and Arjuna and Krishna says, okay, I will do it. And like I said, he also promises that he will not take any arms. So that is the first part of it. Then second is, Krishna actually goes to Hastinapur to convince Dhritarashtra and everybody else that why are you all battling over this? It's not worth it. It's going to result in a lot of deaths and everything. So he goes there, but of course, Duryodhana and all of these people don't care for him. They don't even get up to respect him. However, Krishna goes and does his duty. He goes and says, I'm here to seek peace. And he says the Pandavas are willing to forget everything you all did, including when you did the Draupadi Vastrapaharanam and nobody did anything. The Pandavas are willing to forget everything, all the Vanavasam, everything you did. But he says they actually want, they want 5, first he starts with, a portion of the kingdom. He says, first give them back Indraprastha, which they had. So Duryodhana says, absolutely no. Then Krishna says, at least give them 5 villages for each of them to rule. And even then Duryodhana says, I won't even give them the space equivalent to the tip of a needle. Even that I will not give, right? I'm not going to give. So everybody, Drona and Bhishma and all come and tell, hey, it's not worth it, right? Just give them something. Why do you want to have the war and everything? But however, Duryodhana refuses to do everything. So that's when even Vidura, who was actually, there's something very nice comes, Vidura Niti, which is a conversation happening between Vidura and Uddhava. So Vidura is also a very big devotee. So he realizes everything that is going to happen. So he takes his bow, he breaks his bow, and he walks out of the Sabha saying, I don't want to be associated with this Kauravas anymore. And then he ends up leaving. So all of that is happening. And that's when Duryodhana has this great idea where they make Krishna stand at one point and it's pre-planned. And then the bottom of that thing opens and Krishna then falls down into a jail. So they said, okay, I decided to arrest Krishna, right? So they kind of put Krishna into a prison. So that's when Krishna then Vishwarupam Muni Sadasi, in that entire thing, Krishna then shows the Vishwarupam and says, if I want, in less than an instant, I can burn all of you, right? Because that is the strength, but I won't do it, right? Because that's not what my role is. That's for Pandavas to do. But he does tell everybody there that pretty much your end is destined because Pandavas are going to get rid of you. So he shows that Vishwarupam, which none of them are able to see. Even Dhritarashtra some very briefly gets eyesight to be able to get it, but the power of it is so much that nobody is able to comprehend what was actually happening. So all that happens, and then you then come back to Dwaraka saying nothing can be done here. So Yudhyo Dhyogeta Mantre Milati Sati, comma Vritaha is there, put a F, Vritaf Phalgunena Twamekaha, comma Kauravye Datta Sainyaha, comma Kari Puramagamo. Next word, some books have Dutyakrit, some books have Dautyakrit. So you change it to Dautyakrit in case you have Dutyakrit. So Dautyakrit Pandavartham. Yudhyo Dhyogeta Mantre Milati Sati Britaf Phalgunena Twamekaha Kauravye Datta Sainyaha Karipuramagamo Dautyakrit Pandavartham.
युद्धोद्योगेत मन्त्रे मिलति सति वृतः फल्गुनेन त्वमेकः कौरव्ये दत्तसैन्यः हरिपुरमगमो दौत्यकृत् पाण्डवार्तम् युद्धोद्योगेत मन्त्रे मिलति सति वृतः फल्गुनेन त्वमेकः कौरव्ये दत्तसैन्यः हरिपुरमगमो दौत्यकृत् पाण्डवार्तम्
युद्धोद्योगेत मन्त्रे मिलति सति वृतः फल्गुनेन त्वमेकः कौरव्ये दत्तसैन्यः करिपुरमगमो दौत्यकृत् पाण्डवार्थम् युद्धोद्योगेत मन्त्रे मिलति सति वृतः फल्गुनेन त्वमेकः कौरव्ये दत्तसैन्यः करिपुरमगमो दौत्यकृत् पाण्डवार्थम्
Bhishma Dronadi Manye Tava Khalu Vachane, comma Dhikrite Kauravena, comma Vyavrinvan Vishwarupam Muni Sadasi, comma Purim Kshobayitva Gato Bhuhu. भीष्मद्रोणादिमान्ये तव खलु वचने धिक्कृते कौरवेण व्यावृण्वन् विश्वरूपं मुनिसदसि पुरीं क्षोभयित्वा गतो भूः.
भीष्मद्रोणादिमान्ये तव खलु वचने धिक्कृते कौरवेण व्यावृण्वन् विश्वरूपं मुनिसदसि पुरीं क्षोभयित्वा गतो भूः भीष्मद्रोणादिमान्ये तव खलु वचने धिक्कृते कौरवेण व्यावृण्वन् विश्वरूपं मुनिसदसि पुरीं क्षोभयित्वा गतो भूः
भीष्मद्रोणादिमान्ये तव खलु वचने धिक्कृते कौरवेण व्यावृण्वन् विश्वरूपं मुनिसदसि पुरीं क्षोभयित्वा गतो भूः भीष्मद्रोणादिमान्ये तव खलु वचने धिक्कृते कौरवेण व्यावृण्वन् विश्वरूपं मुनिसदसि पुरीं क्षोभयित्वा गतो भूः.
Stanza 6. जिष्णोस्त्वं कृष्णसूतः खलु समरमुखे बन्धुघाते दयालुं खिन्नं तं वीक्ष्य वीरं किमिदमयि सखे नित्य एकोऽयमात्मा को वद्यः कोऽत्र हन्ता तदिह वदभियं प्रोज्य मय्यर्पितात्मा धर्म्यं युद्धं चरेति प्रकृतिमनयता दर्शयन् विश्वरूपम्. So entire Bhagavad Gita is condensed into this one. So of course you all know Arjuna, the war is about to start. He's stuck in this thing. Why do I? And this is a problem that's going to come to Yudhishthira also later. So we're going to see that later. But this is before the war, right? I mean, in the battlefield, Arjuna is asking, why do I have to fight? I see all my Vichittapas, Mamas and everybody there and my cousins. What am I going to achieve? So he asks one question, why should I fight? And then Krishna gives 701 slokas, right, where he's covering about Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all the combinations and everything he talks about in 700 stanzas. And finally, Arjuna decides to fight, right? So that is anyway all condensed in this one. But the basic premise he's saying is, Krishna is asking, Ko Vadyaha Ko Tahantra. Who is the person who is killing and who is the person who is getting killed? How do you define that who? right? And he says it's because Nityam Ekoyam Atma. He says there's only one Atma, universal soul, and then there is individual souls which are there, and that soul does not have any birth. That you all know that very well, the whole Bhagavad Gita concept, right? So he gives that, and he says, you don't worry about, you do your duty. Your duty right now is to go fight for dharmam, and your duty is to fight in this battle. So don't worry about the outcome of this. Leave that to me and submit whatever you're my arpita atma. Leave all of the actions you're doing and the outcome of that to me, and you just go do your duty. So with that, you also then show Arjuna the Vishwarupam again, and then you changed his mind and got him to a state of balanced mind. So Jishnos tvam Krishna sutaha, khalu samara mukhe bandhu ghate dayalum, khinnam tam vikshya viram kim idam ai sakhe, nitya ekoyamatma. Jishnostvam Krishna sutah khalu samaramuke bandhugate dayalum khinnam tam vikshya viram kimidamai sakhe nitya ekoyamatma.
जिष्णोस्त्वं कृष्णसूतः खलु समरमुखे बन्धुघाते दयालुं खिन्नं तं वीक्ष्य वीरं किमिदमयि सखे नित्य एकोऽयमात्मा जिष्णोस्त्वं कृष्णसूतः खलु समरमुखे बन्धुघाते दयालुं खिन्नं तं वीक्ष्य वीरं किमिदमयि सखे नित्य एकोऽयमात्मा
जिष्णोस्त्वं कृष्णसूतः खलु समरमुखे बन्धुघाते दयालुं खिन्नं तं वीक्ष्य वीरं किमिदमयि सखे नित्य एकोऽयमात्मा जिष्णोस्त्वं कृष्णसूतः खलु समरमुखे बन्धुघाते दयालुं खिन्नं तं वीक्ष्य वीरं किमिदमयि सखे नित्य एकोऽयमात्मा
को वद्यः, put a ich sound, vadyah kotra hanta, tadiha vadha bhiyam projya. So ij and jha, to projya mai arpitatma, double ya, mai arpitatma, dharmyam yuddham chareti, prakritim anayatha darshayan vishwarupam. को वद्यः कोऽत्र हन्ता तदिह वदभियं प्रोज्य मय्यर्पितात्मा धर्म्यं युद्धं चरेति प्रकृतिमनयता दर्शयन् विश्वरूपम्.
को वद्यः कोऽत्र हन्ता तदिह वदभियं प्रोज्य मय्यर्पितात्मा धर्म्यं युद्धं चरेति प्रकृतिमनयता दर्शयन् विश्वरूपम् को वद्यः कोऽत्र हन्ता तदिह वदभियं प्रोज्य मय्यर्पितात्मा धर्म्यं युद्धं चरेति प्रकृतिमनयता दर्शयन् विश्वरूपम्
को वद्यः कोऽत्र हन्ता तदिह वदभियं प्रोज्य मय्यर्पितात्मा धर्म्यं युद्धं चरेति प्रकृतिमनयता दर्शयन् विश्वरूपम् को वद्यः कोऽत्र हन्ता तदिह वदभियं प्रोज्य मय्यर्पितात्मा धर्म्यं युद्धं चरेति प्रकृतिमनयता दर्शयन् विश्वरूपम्.
Yeah.
The third line, the end, is it a projya?
Yeah, it's a ij and then a jya. So jya is also the half ja. So ij and jya. So two ij, think of it that way. One ij is separate, one ij is with a ya. So projya.
Projya.
Yeah,
Projya.
correct. So two ij is coming. Second ij is with a ya. So jya.
Projya.
Yeah, correct. So two j's and then a ya. Yeah.
Thank you.
Stanza 7. Bhaktotam seta bhishme tava dharani bharakshepa krityikasakte nityam nityam vibindatyayuda samadikam prapta sade cha parthe nishastratva pratignya vijahadarivaram dharayan krodashali vadhavan pranjalintam natashira samato vikshya modata pagaha. So some of so there are multiple times where in Krishna has done whatever it takes for his devotees, right? So in the previous also, Jishnu, for Arjuna, you are the Suta, you are the charioteer, right? That is not like, it's like a caddy shack, right? For somebody's golfer, right? I mean, the golfer, of course, gets all the credit. The caddy shack is also helping, but the golfer gets a credit. So Krishna didn't mind about it, right? Similarly, what was happening was when the war was happening 9 days in, and Bhishma was killing about 10,000 Pandava soldiers every day. But nothing was happening to the Pandavas. And Karna also had said, I am not going to step in the battlefield as long as Bhishma is there. So Duryodhana is like, you know what? This Bhishma Pitamaha is not doing enough. He's not getting rid of any of the Pandavas. So one day he comes to Bhishma and says that I am done. I think you should get out of the battlefield because I want Karna to come, because the Pandavas, nothing is happening to them. You're just keeping on killing their soldiers. It's not helping me. Because you love the Pandavas, you're not doing anything to them. So Bhishma says, no, I am absolutely dedicated to the, he's follow the rules. He says, I'm fighting on your side. I'm going to only fight on your side. So he then takes a bow that he's going to get rid of all the Pandavas, and he says, tomorrow I'm going to get rid of Arjuna, right? So he takes a vow. So when Bhishma takes a vow, of course, the word is spreading everywhere that tomorrow Bhishma is going to get rid of Arjuna. That's a vow he's taken. So Draupadi is very worried. So Draupadi then, of course, the first thing she always does, or the last thing, is she calls Krishna. So she says, I'm very worried what's going to happen. Krishna says, okay, don't worry, you come with me. So at night, Krishna takes her to the tent in the middle of the battlefield. And then when Draupadi is walking, Krishna says, you know what, your chappal, your sandals is making too much noise. You just remove it, right? And then let's not disturb anybody. And then they walk in. So he doesn't tell Draupadi anything. He says, you go in. There will be a old man who's pacing, right? Because it's also dark. He says, you just go fall in his feet. Don't say anything. Just go fall in his feet. So Draupadi just goes, and then Bhishma is walking and she just falls in his feet, right? So Bhishma immediately blesses, saying, Saubhagyavati Bhava, right? May you live long with your husband. So immediately then she gets up, Bhishma also gets up, and Bhishma says it is Draupadi. So he says, no, what are you doing here? So she says, oh, Krishna only told me to come. And Bhishma looks, and Krishna is actually carrying both of Draupadi's sandals on his shoulder, right? So Draupadi is like, what are you doing? You're carrying my chappals, right? And even Bhishma is amazed, saying what is happening, but he realizes what Krishna's intent was. So then Draupadi says, you blessed that I will live happily with my husband, but then you also took a vow that you are going to kill my husband and you're going to kill Arjuna. So what are you going to uphold, right? So Bhishma then says, I will uphold my blessings to you, right? Because of this, I will fail doing my vow, because for them, taking a vow means you would absolutely stick to it, right? So he says, although I took a vow, I'm going to get rid of your thing. I am now blessed you that nothing will happen to your husband, so I will not kill your husbands, right? Bhishma does this, but Bhishma then gets little, annoyed because he saw how Krishna tricked. So Bhishma then tells Krishna, you took a vow that you are not going to take arms. He says, I will make sure that you take arms in the battlefield, right? That's what Bhishma does. Bhishma takes over. So the next day in the battlefield, what's happening is Arjuna and Bhishma battle is going on, and Arjuna is still like, he's not again getting rid of Bhishma. So Krishna then decides, he tells Arjuna, then Krishna acts as if he's getting angry. Krishna as a god, he never is going to get angry, but he realized how Bhishma gave up his vow because of the promise he made. So Krishna also wants to put Bhishma on top. So Krishna also wants to show how Bhishma won. So he wants to show the world that Bhishma is also right. So what Krishna does is he steps down from the chariot. He then takes the wheel of the chariot and tells Arjuna, if you do not get rid of Bhishma, I can get rid of Bhishma right now. And then he gets down in the battlefield with a chariot wheel and says, with this chariot wheel, I can get rid of Bhishma. And then when Krishna does that, Bhishma puts his arms down and he folds his hands and says, I'm ready whenever you're ready to kill me, right? And then he does the Bhishma Stuti, where he goes and praises Krishna and says, if you are there to kill, what is there for me to resist, right? So Bhishma was a big devotee, and more of that will come later also. So Bhishma then says, I'm ready to die. So that's when Arjuna also realizes and he apologizes. Krishna, you've taken a vow that you're not going to take arms in this battlefield. It's my duty. And Arjuna says, I will fight Bhishma. And then he fought Bhishma, right? So that is the story that is happening here. But the important thing here is Krishna didn't have to take. Krishna wants in 1 second he can get rid of everybody. But his point was not to take to fight against Bhishma, but to make sure Bhishma won, because Bhishma also gave up his vow. So Krishna also wanted to make sure that his devotee is not losing. So he made Bhishma won. he make Bhishma win by, upholding his vow, right? That's what is action happening here. So, anyway, Bhakto Tamseta Bhishme, comma, Tava Dharani Bhara Kshepa Krityaika Sakte, comma, Nityam Nityam Bibhindatyayuta. So that word is together. Bibhindatyayuta Samadikam Prapta Sade Cha Parthe. So that line is together. Bhaktotam Seta Bhishme Tava Dharani Bhara Kshepa Krityaika Sakte Nityam Nityam Bibhindatyayuta Samadikam Prapta Sade Cha Parthe.
Bhakto tam seta bhishme tavadharani bharakshepa sakte nityam nityam vibindatyayuta samadikam prapta sade chaparte. Bhakto tam seta bhishme tavadharani bharakshepa sakte nityam nityam vibindatyayuta samadikam prapta sade chaparte.
Bhakto tam seta bhishme तव धरणिबरक्षेपकृत्यैकसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं बिभिन्दद्ययुतसमधिकं प्राप्तसाधे च पार्थे भक्तो तं सेत भीष्मे तव धरणिबरक्षेपकृत्यैकसक्ते नित्यं नित्यं बिभिन्दद्ययुतसमधिकं प्राप्तसाधे च पार्थे
Nishastratva. Nishastratva. So the multiple words coming there, but you can try to say it together. Nishastratva pratignyam vijahad arivaram. If you want to break at the vijahad arivaram dharayan krodashali, and then put a plus vadhavan. So that line is together, comma after vadhavan, comma pranjalim tam nata shira samatho vikshya modadapagaha. Modadapagaha. Nishastratva pratignyam vijahadarivaram dharayan krodhashali madhavan pranjalim tam natashira samato vikshya modadapagaha.
Nishastratva pratignyam vijahadarivaram dharayan krodashali vadavan pranjalim tam natashira samato vikshya modadapagaha. Correct பிரிக்கிறேன்.
Correct தான்.
Nishastratva pratignyam vijahadarivaram dharayan krodashali Vadavan pranjalam tam natashira samato vikshya modadapagaha.
The fourth line after vadhavan, there is a comma, okay?
Oh, okay.
निःशस्त्रत्वप्रतिज्ञां विजहदरिवरं धारयन् क्रोधशाली वादावन् प्राञ्जलिं तं नतशिरसमथो वीक्ष्य मोदादपागाः निःशस्त्रत्वप्रतिज्ञां विजहदरिवरं धारयन् क्रोधशाली वादावन् प्राञ्जलिं तं नतशिरसमथो वीक्ष्य मोदादपागाः
युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्ते स्थिररणभगदत्तेरितं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्यादत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजं नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षितिमवनमयन् केवलं कृत्तमौलिं तत्रे तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानाम् अकार्षीत्. It says, what all have we not done? Kimiva nahi bhavan. What all have we not done for the Pandavas? Right? Because at the end of the Mahabharata war, and everybody went and said, who's the man of the match? Right? And they said, Arjuna. Right? Arjuna is the man of the match. But then there is another story which I won't get into. There was one person who was witnessing the entire war. And he said, Krishna is the man of the match. Right? In this. And who is the Krishna is the hero, let's say that way. Who is the heroine? Draupadi is actually the heroine of Mahabharata because she's the one who behind the scenes was orchestrating a lot of these things, trigger and anyway, right? So anyway, here Krishna is saving them in multiple ways. One is a person called Bhagadatta who has his Vaishnavasram he sends towards Arjuna. So Krishna then from the chariot he steps up and takes that Vaishnavasram onto him because Vaishnavasram is a Narayana Astra. So it's in essentially coming back to the source. So that's why Arjuna is saved. Then the second one which happens is the story of Jayadratha, which is very famous, where Jayadratha married this Dushala, who's the only daughter among the Kauravas, 100 brothers, and they have one sister. The Dushala was married by this Jayadratha. So Jayadratha, when the Pandavas were in exile, he tried to actually come and abduct Draupadi. So the Pandavas all go chase him and all that stuff, but then they decided not to do anything to him, just let him go. So he insulted him and let him go. So he then goes and does penance with Shiva. And then he says, I want a boon to defeat the Pandavas. Shiva says, I cannot give you such a boon. It's not possible. But he says, one day you will be able to stop the Pandavas. Completely, you will be able to stop the Pandavas. So that was the day when Abhimanyu was going to go into the chakram, right? So at that time, this guy, what he does is he goes and completely blocks the Pandavas from advancing. So they are not able to go forward to go protect Chakravyuha. That's why Abhimanyu then dies. So when Pandavas come to know about it, Arjuna then takes a vow, saying, if I do not get rid of this person by tomorrow sunset, he says, I'm going to kill myself, right? So that is a vow Arjuna takes. So then the next day, if Kauravas know this, so they're like, okay, perfect chance. If we cannot kill Arjuna, we'll let him kill himself, right? So they give all this protection to Jayadratha, so that Arjuna cannot get near him. So finally, when the time was nearing and Arjuna thought it's all done, so that's when Krishna, with the Sudarshan Chakra, he goes and blocks the sun. So then they all think it's sunset, this is over, and this person comes out, right, saying that everything is over. And that's when Krishna then withdraws it back, and then he tells Arjuna, this is your chance to hit Jayadratha. Then Arjuna hits Jayadratha, and that's how Jayadratha goes as a second. Then the third one, which is absolutely very important one, of course, as you all know, Karna, when he's fighting with Arjuna, then Salya, who is the charioteer, tells him, you have this one Nagastra or whatever you have, which is extremely powerful. He says, aim at Arjuna's chest, right? But Karna, being Karna, he said, as a charioteer, how can you advise me? And then he aims it at Arjuna's neck. He wants to chop Arjuna's head away. That's when Krishna just puts his feet on the ground. The chariot goes down a foot, and then it knocks off Arjuna's crown, right? And that's how Arjuna is saved. So multiple times like this, Krishna says, you've helped the Pandavas, especially Arjuna, so many times, right? And so what all have you not done for the Pandavas? So Yuddhe Dronasya, Hasti Stira Rana Bhagadat Teritam. So Ittandata Bhagadat Teritam Vaishnavastram, Vakshasyadhatta Chakra Stagita Ravi Mahaha, Prardayat Sindhurajam. Yuddhe Dronasya Haste Sthirarana Bhagadat Teritam Vaishnavastram Vakshasyadhatta Chakra Stagita Ravi Mahaha Prardayat Sindhurajam.
Yuddhe Dronasya Hastasthirarana Bhagadatteritam Vaishnavastram Vakshasya Datta Chakrastagitara Vimahaha Prardayat Sindhurajam. Yuddhe Dronasya Hastasthirarana Bhagadatteritam Vaishnavastram Vakshasya Datta Chakrastagitara Vimahaha Prardayat Sindhurajam.
युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्तिस्थिररणभगदत्तेरितं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्यादत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजम्. युद्धे द्रोणस्य हस्तिस्थिररणभगदत्तेरितं वैष्णवास्त्रं वक्षस्यादत्तचक्रस्थगितरविमहाः प्रार्थयत् सिन्धुराजम्.
Nagastre Karna Mukte, Kshitim Avanamayan, if you want to break it, Kshitim Avanamayan, Kevalam Kritta Maulim, Tatre Tatrapi Partham, Kimiva Nahi Bhavan, Pandavanam Akarshit. Nagastre Karna Mukte, Kshitimavanamayyan Kevalam Kritamaulim Tatre Tatrapi Partam Kimivanahi Bhavan Pandavanam Akarshit.
Nagastre Karnamukte Shitimavanamayan Kevalam Krittamaulim Tatre Tatrapi Partam Kimiva Mahibavan Pandavanam Akarshit.
Kimiva Nahi.
In that Nahi.
Fourth line, yeah, Na.
Okay. Nagastre Karnamukte Shitimavanamayan Kevalam Krittamaulim Tatre Tatrapi Partam Kimiva Nahi Bhavan Pandavanam Akarshit.
नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षितिमवनमयन् केवलं कृत्तमौलिं तत्रे तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानामकार्षीत् नागास्त्रे कर्णमुक्ते क्षितिमवनमयन् केवलं कृत्तमौलिं तत्रे तत्रापि पार्थं किमिव न हि भवान् पाण्डवानामकार्षीत्.
Answer 9. Yuddhado tirthagami sakalu haladaro naimisha kshetra mrichen apratyuttayi sutakshayi kridata sutam tatpade kalpayitva yajñaknam balbalam parvani paridalayen snata tirtoranante samprapto bhima duryodhanaranamshamam vikshya yatah purimte. So in all of this, Balarama said, you know what, I'm not going to participate in any of this war. I'm not going to be inclined, not going to take any sides. So he then goes on a Tirtha Yatra at the beginning itself. So the main thing I want to cover is this place called Naimisharanya. I don't know how many of you have heard about it. It is as, pious and as sanctified as Ranganatha Swami temple in Sri Rangam. It's one of the on the top 8 Vishnu Sthalam. This is a place called Naimisharanya. So even when you go to Tirupati, right, they say you don't have to see the Balaji, because the mountains you see is Balaji. So Balaji is there as the mountains. So similarly in Tiruvannamalai, when we go, right, we then say, the mountain itself is Arunachaleshwara, right? That's where the Lord is. Similarly in Naimisharanyam, the forest itself is the Bhagavan. Right, it's a very pious place in Uttar Pradesh, so it's called Naimishan. That's a Naimisharanyam is also the place where a lot of things happens. So the Bhagavatam story was told to Parikshit by Sukabrahmam at Naimisharanyam. So Veda Vyasa also composed, when he broke down the Vedas, he did all of that in Naimisharanyam. Then, somewhere there are a lot of stories, how Naimisharanyam is famous. So, that's a very religious place. So what Balarama does is he first goes to Naimisharanyam. He starts his pilgrimage there because that is supposed to be a very pious place, religious place. Of course, now there is a small tank and everything. I haven't been there, but there's a forest. There used to be Aranyam itself means forest. So there used to be a forest there. I don't know how much of it is left now. So anyway, so this Balarama goes on Tirtha Yatra, and then when he goes there, a few incidents happen where he kills, a few other people which are not working well. But finally he comes back. When he comes back, he sees that the Bhima and Duryodhana battle was still going on, or that was about to happen. Then he again says, I don't want anything to deal with this because I cannot support Bhima or Duryodhana. So he says, I'm going again. So, and then he then goes off to Dwaraka. He says, I don't want to be involved in any of the battle. So Yuddhadav, so let's just maybe switch, right? Let me just see. So Jayashree, you can be a student, and Aarti, you can be a student, okay? Yuddhadav Tirtha Gami, sa khalu haladharo naimisha kshetra mrichanne, put a in there, mrichanne, next line, the in and the na that you have, that becomes a. So aprat yutthayi suta kshayi kridata, sutam tatpade kalpayitva.
Suta kshayanu potirukku.
Okay. Sutam tatpade kalpayitva.
Illa. Aprayat yutthayi suta kshayava
Suta kshaya. Yuddhado tirthagami sakhalu haladharo naimisha kshetra mrichanne apratyuttayi suta kshayi kridata sutam tatpade kalpayitva.
Yuddhado tirthagami sakhalu haladharo naimisha kshetra mrichanne aprayat yutthayi suta kshayak kridata. தப்பா சொல்றேன் நினைக்கிறேன்.
அந்த ஃபர்ஸ்ட் அப்ரத் யுத்தாய்.
அப்ரத் யுத்தாய்.
அப்ரத் யுத்தாய்.
Aprat yuthai. Okay. Yeah. Aprat yuthai suta kshaya kridata sutam tatpade kalpayitva yuddhadau tirthagami sakhalu haladharo naimishat नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायि सूतक्षयकृदथ सुतं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा.
The Kridata Kapran, there's a comma, okay, second line.
युद्धादौ तीर्थगामी सकलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायि सूत क्षयकृदत सुतं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा. युद्धादौ तीर्थगामी सकलु हलधरो नैमिषक्षेत्रमृच्छन् अप्रत्युत्थायि सूत क्षयकृदत सुतं तत्पदे कल्पयित्वा.
Yajnagnam. So this is little difficult to say. Yajna is there, Y-A-G-N-A, Yajna. Then Gnam, G-H-N-A-M, Gnam. So Yajnagnam. Next word, some books have Valkalam, some books have Balvalam. So you change it to Balvalam. Okay, so Balvalam. Yajnagnam, Balvalam, Parvani, Paridalayan, comma, Snata Tirtho Ranante, and then put a plus, Samprapto, and then put a comma. So one comma after Paridalayan in the third line, then plus after Samprapto, comma, Bhima Duryodhana Ranamashamam Vikshya Yataf Purim Te. Yajnagnam balvalam parvani paridalayan snatatirtoranante samprapto bhima duryodhana ranamashamam vikshayataf purim te.
यज्ञग्नं बल्वलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नाततीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यातः पुरीते.
Purim,
पुरीं ते. यज्ञग्नं बल्वलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नाततीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यातः पुरीं ते.
यज्ञग्नं बल्बलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नाततीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यातः पुरीं ते. यज्ञग्नं बल्बलं पर्वणि परिदलयन् स्नाततीर्थोरणान्ते सम्प्राप्तो भीमदुर्योधनरणमशमं वीक्ष्य यातः पुरीं ते.
அசமம்க்கு அப்புறம் ஒரு கமா இருக்கு இல்லையா?
எங்க
அந்த வீக்ஷ யாத்த புரியும் தேக்கு முன்னால அசமம்
இல்ல only samprapto, after samprapto there is a comma and then the rest of the line. Stanza 10. संसुप्त द्रौपदेय क्षपन हतदिह्यं द्रौणिमेति अत्वदुक्त्या तन्मुक्तं भ्राममस्त्रं समहृत विजयो मौलिरत्नं च जह्रे उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्र किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभोत्वम्. So you all know this, right? So the end after Duryodhana is now technically he's not dead, but he is wounded. He's not going to be able to fight anymore. So he's in his last days. So at this time, Ashwatthama then decides that I have to do something for my boss, right? So he then goes at night and then he goes into the Pandava's tent and then he sees 5 people sleeping. And then he takes his sword, he kills all 5, he takes their heads and then goes to Duryodhana and says, I've avenged the death, right? And then here, see, all the 5 Pandavas are dead. Then when they realize that he didn't kill the Pandavas, he killed the only leftover Upa Pandavas, which are the 5, because Abhimanyu is already gone. And then only the dynasty or the next ancestry of the Pandavas, Upa Pandavas, 5 of them were there. He's essentially killed all of them. So when the morning, when Draupadi and everybody look, they say that all her entire children, everybody's gone, right? So of course, there's a lot of things that happen there. So at that time, then there's a battle that happens between Ashwatthama he sends out a Brahmastra because he realizes he missed the Pandavas. So he knows the Pandavas are going to come after him. So he sends a Brahmastra, then he doesn't know how to take it back. Then Arjuna also sends a Brahmastra, but somehow he's able to counter it and then take away the effect. So that is one separate story that happens. But more importantly, at this time, they bring Ashwatthama back. Arjuna captures Ashwatthama back and brings to Draupadi and Yudhishthira and everybody and says, this is the person who's killed everybody. Let's just get rid of him. But then the Draupadi says, he is your guru's son. Your guru's son is as good as your guru. So even though he's done all these mistakes, you cannot kill him, because killing him is like, chopping your guru again. So then they let Ashwatthama go. They insult him, they cut his hair and all that stuff. They let him go. But this Ashwatthama, what he does again, when Krishna is about to leave Indraprastha, everything is done, battle is over. Krishna is leaving for Dwaraka, getting ready. He sees Uttara coming, running towards him. And then Uttara is coming and saying, and Uttara does not go to any, Uttara is Abhimanyu's wife. She doesn't go to any of the Pancha Pandavas. She directly comes to Krishna. Says, Krishna, you have to help me. Uttara was pregnant at that time with Abhimanyu's child. And she says, I feel heat in my fetus and I feel that a Brahmastra is coming towards my fetus because it's targeted. You start feeling it. She says, I feel like somebody is going to, something is happening to my womb. So Krishna then realizes what's going to happen. So he then says, Angushta Matra. So you take the size of a thumb, right? And then Chakrapani, with your chakram, you go inside Uttara's fetus, and then Abhimanyu's Brahmastram comes, and then you counter that Brahmastra, right? And that's how Parikshit is born. So that's why Parikshit has name has two meanings. One is he's already gone through a Pariksha. He's gone through an examination before he's born, right? He was about to be killed by Brahmastra, but then he's recovered. Two is, like all they say, the womb is like a no intruder zone, right? Nobody goes there, right? Nobody can be there. It's one of the most protected part. But somehow this baby, when fetus was in the womb, it saw it had an intruder come into the womb, which was Krishna. And then it was like Krishna was going around the baby, protecting. So this Ikshita means also to see, and Pari means around. So this, because the baby was looking around, saying, who is going around me? It is also called Parikshit. So this is a story that Parikshit then hears from Shuka Brahmam and everybody else about how he has been protected by Krishna himself, right? And that's why he was so blessed that even though he had only 7 days left, he then ended up learning Bhagavatam. But anyway, that is the story here. You went to Uttara's womb and then you protected Parikshit here. So Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapana Hata Dhyam, Drauni Metya Tvaduktya, Tan Muktam Brahmamastram, Samahrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam Cha Jahre. So eventually that Mauli Ratnam that Ashwatthama has, Krishna then Arjuna removes it. So and that's Krishna says, Ashwatthama, you're going to suffer for the rest of the yuga. You're going to be alive and go through for all the karma that you have done, you're going to suffer for it. Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapana Hata Dhyam Drauni Metya Tvaduktya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Samahrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam Cha Jahre.
Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapanahata Dhiyam Draunimetya Tvaduktya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Samahrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam Cha Jahre. Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapanahata Dhiyam Draunimetya Tvaduktya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Samakrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam Cha Jahre.
Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapanahata Diyam Draunimetya Tvaduktya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Samakrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam Cha Jahre. Samsupta Draupadeya Kshapanahata Diyam Draunimetya Tvaduktya Tanmuktam Brahmamastram Samakrita Vijayo Mauli Ratnam Cha Jahre.
Uchchityai Pandavanam, Punarapi Cha Vishat Yuttara Garbhamastre, and then put a plus. Rakshan Angushta is Rakshan Angushta, but in and na is coming, so double na comes. Rakshan Angushta Matraha, put a ich Matrah Khila Jataramagaha. That ish, if you have it, you remove it, Visarga and a comma. Jataramagaha Chakrapanir Vibho Tvam. उच्छित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशद्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभो त्वम्
उच्चित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभो त्वम् उच्चित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभो त्वम्
उच्चित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभो त्वम् उच्चित्यै पाण्डवानां पुनरपि च विशत्युत्तरा गर्भमस्त्रे रक्षन्नङ्गुष्टमात्रः किल जठरमगाः चक्रपाणिर्विभो त्वम्.
Stanza 11. धर्मौघं धर्मसूनोरभिददखिलं छन्दमृत्युः स भीष्मः त्वां पश्यन् भक्तिभूम्नैव हि सपदि ययो निष्कलब्रह्मभूयं संयाज्याताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरतिमहितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्. So after the war, everything is over. First, like Arjuna had the doubt, why am I fighting all this? Then after the entire war is over, Yudhishthira refuses to take the throne. He says, what is all this, right? I destroyed my entire cousins, destroyed all these people, destroyed my gurus. What am I going to do taking this throne? All of this is useless. And Krishna says, you remember, we all fought for this, right? This is what we all went through. But then Krishna realizes that nobody can convince Yudhishthira except one person. So Bhishma was still alive, right? Because Bhishma, so like we saw in the 4th Dasakam, right? When the soul leaves through the Brahmarandra, which is the top, when it's going to attain liberation, it has two things. It has to go. It has to wait for Uttarayanam to come for the soul to leave the earthly plane and go up. So because Bhishma had Icha Mrityu, he can decide, he knows it. He says, why will I want my soul to, he had already attained the level of liberation. He said, why will I want my soul to be waiting? So he waited for Uttarayanam to happen. So he was waiting for the Uttarayana Punya Kalam. So that's when Bhishma goes, Yudhishthira goes there, and then he asks Bhishma a set of dharma related questions. Should I take up this kingdom? What is the right? Yudhishthira is asking. So that's what I always say when I teach Vishnu Sahasranamam. I always say, the questions, right? The person who is asking the question should be intelligent enough to ask the right questions. More importantly, to the person you are asking, you should ask a question so that they give you the appropriate answers. You can't go to somebody and ask a very basic question, what is 1 + 1, right? So to ask the right question also, you should have knowledge. So Yudhishthira, who had already in the Yaksha Prasnam answered 140 questions, he himself had dharma related questions. So he went to Bhishma. And Bhishma answered all of those questions. And then that's when Yudhishthira goes and asks the 6 questions, right? Kimekam daivatam loke kimbapekam parayanam. So the Vishnu Sahasranam, and then Bhishma then says the entire Vishnu Sahasranamam. And then he says that Narayana, who I'm describing in all this, is nobody but Devaki Sutaha, who is standing right here with us. Right? So Bhishma then gives it, and finally Bhishma gets liberated, and then you help Yudhishthira complete the Ashwamedha Yajnam, and then Samprapto Dwarakam. So finally all of this is done, and you come back to Dwaraka. So Dharmaugam, Dharma. So this word Dharma Sunor Abhidhadat Akhilam. That's an easier way to say it. Otherwise, it's a pretty long word. So Dharma Sunor Abhidhadat Akhilam Chanda Mrityussa Bhishmaha. So put a visarga and a comma. The rest of the line is continuous there. Next line is goes away. Tvam Pashyan Bhakti Bhumnaivahi, comma Sapadi Yayau Nishkala Brahma Bhuyam.
Rajesh, a quick question. இதுல வந்து தர்மௌகம் தர்ம சூனோஹோன்னு கொடுத்திருக்கான். அது சூனோர்னு மாத்தணுமா?
Okay. If you have Sunoho, then you will have Abhidhada Dakilam already, right? You will have the A there. Yeah. So just put a Ra there. So Dharma Suno, so it becomes Dharma Sunor Abhidhada Dakilam. And the Visarga badala Ra vandurum. And then you break it.
இல்ல ரானா சூனோர் போட்டுட்டு அப்புறம் அதை ஸ்பிளிட் பண்ணி அபி
Abhidada
Correct,
Akilam.
correct. You put a ra there, then you break that ra into ir and a a. So dharmasunor abhidada dakilam.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
धर्मौघं धर्मसूनोरभिदधदखिलं छन्दमृत्युस्स भीष्मः त्वां पश्यन् भक्तिभूम्नैव हि सपदि ययौ निष्कलब्रह्मभूयम्
धर्मौघं धर्मसूनोरभिददखिलं छन्दमृत्युः स भीष्मः त्वां पश्यन् भक्तिभूम्नैव हि सपदि ययौ निष्कलब्रह्मभूयम् धर्मौघं धर्मसूनोरभिददखिलं छन्दमृत्युः स भीष्मः त्वां पश्यन् भूम्नैव हि सपदि ययौ निष्कलब्रह्मभूयम्
धर्मौघं धर्मसूनोरभिददखिलं छन्दमृत्युः स भीष्मः त्वां पश्यन् भक्तिभूम्नैव हि सपदि ययौ निष्कलब्रह्मभूयम् धर्मौघं धर्मसूनोरभिददखिलं छन्दमृत्युः स भीष्मः त्वां पश्यन् भक्तिभूम्नैव हि सपदि ययौ निष्कलब्रह्मभूयम्.
Rajesh, can you repeat that Tvam Pashyan? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, त्वां पश्यन् भक्तिभूम्नैव हि सपदि ययौ निष्कलब्रह्मभूयम्
Okay, thanks.
Samya Jyatashva. So you remember the word Ashwa, right? So Samya Jyatashva Medhais Tribirati Mahitair Dharmajam Purnakamam. So that line is together, comma. Samprapto Dwarakam Tvam, comma. Pavanapurapate Pahimam Sarvarogat. संह्याजाताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरति महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्
मेधैस्त्रिभिरति महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात् संयाज्याथाश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरति महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्.
द्वारकां त्वं kapran there's a comma, okay.
संयाज्याताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरमति महितैः धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात् संयाज्याताश्वमेधैस्त्रिभिरति महितैर्धर्मजं पूर्णकामं सम्प्राप्तो द्वारकां त्वं पवनपुरपते पाहि मां सर्वरोगात्. श्री कृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
Okay, so that completes 86. So after, of course, now then once Krishna goes back to Dwaraka, 87 is Kuchelo Pakyanam, then Santana Gopalo Pakyanam, and then Krishna Avataram according to Narayaneeyam comes to an end, right? So we'll go to 89. So 89 is Vrikasura Vada Varnanam. So stanza 1. Brahma Janhe Yadi Hatava Bhakteshu Vibhavo Nasadhya Sampadhyas Tadiha Madakrit कृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकथा. So like I was telling earlier, so we all ask these questions. I'm doing all these prayers to Krishna, right? I'm asking for all these things, but I'm not getting anything. Like Duryodhana wanted the entire army, he got the entire army, right? But he says, but he didn't get Krishna though, right? So he says, we all ask this. So we are not the first person to ask. So even Parikshit goes and asks a very interesting question. He says, this Shiva, who everybody prays to, he is an ascetic, right? He is wearing like, tiger skin. He is wearing ashes all over his body. He has absolutely nothing with him, right? But Anytime anybody goes and asks, is an Ashutoshi, he instantly gives them all material benefits. Everybody gets everything they want. But at the other end, Shripati, right, who's the husband of Lakshmi, so where prosperity needs to be there. So you pray to Vishnu, nobody gets any of his fortunes, and his people who pray to him are always subject to poverty. They're always suffering and all this. He says there's a paradox. I'm not understanding why this is happening. Right? This is a question that even Parikshit asks. So then for this, Shukra talks about a conversation that Uddhava or Yudhishthira or somebody asks Krishna also the same question. Why is it that people who pray to Shiva get everything, but people who pray to Narayana don't get anything? So it's a multiple threads of stories, right? So even we ask the same questions anyway. So here they go and say, because the energies of Shiva, he says, are manifested in various forms. So you have, it's manifested in the context of the material world. Like, you have this Jyotirlinga, you have Agnilinga, you have all of this. So there are anybody, like we talked about long time back in the Brahmandam, anybody who is inside that Andam are bound by material things, or bound by karma, or bound or some form of another, because of the Rajoguna, Tamoguna. There's a little bit of material aspects attached to it. So all the gods, all the demigods who are residing in that have that power. So anytime you want something materialistic, you want more money, you want more arms, you want more this, you should pray to them, because they're more like, that's their kind of responsibility. But he says, but Narayana is beyond the Brahmandam. He's not associated with anything materialistic. The only time Narayana will come to help, he says, is when you want absolute liberation and absolute knowledge. That is when they say you go pray to Narayana. Otherwise, for everything else, you say you pray to all the other benefits. That's the response that, Shukabhamam gives. That's a response even Krishna also gives, right? But doesn't mean you can't pray to Narayana. But the reason they say is, even Krishna says is, I myself will make sure that my devotees, when they have what they want materialistically, they will never ask me for anything, because then they are happy. They are never going to pray to me, right? If you had all the money you want, if you had everything you want, we will never pray to God. We are all like that, right? We all only will pray when we want something. So he says, for if I feel that my devotee is ready for attaining me, is ready for liberation, then Krishna himself says, I'll start taking away things from my devotees. Because when I start taking away things from my devotees, they lose all their money, they lose all their network, because families and friends stop talking to them. They have nothing. And then they say, Krishna, all I have is just you. And I'm only going to be praying to you because that's all I want. Because then I give them everything they need, and then I also give them liberation. Right? And he says that is the approach. Even Bhattaripad is saying here that you don't give people material benefits, because then they get more proud. Because anytime you have more of money or more of anything, you get more proud, and then you get arrogant, you have ego, and then you lose devotion in God. Only when you lose things, your devotion to God will increase. That's why even all of the people who asked for Krishna's help finally had nothing. That was the last resort. They say, Krishna, please come and help. Then Krishna gave them everything more and more, right? So that is the example here this is what you call Bhattaripad is also telling. And a little bit continuing the second stanza also, but Rama jane yadiha tava bhakteshu vibhavo, na sadyas sampadyas tadiha mada kritvada shaminam prashantim kritvaiva pradishasi tataha tatah kamamakilam, prashanteshu kshipram na khalu bhavadiye chutikata. So no pause in between, just comma at the end of the line. Rama janhe yadi khatava bhakteshu vibhavo na sadyas sampadyas tadiha mada kritva dashaminam prashantim kritvaiva pradishasi tatah kamamakilam prashanteshu kshipram na khalu bhavadiye chutikata.
रमा जाने यदि तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्य सम्पद्यस्तदिह मद कृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीये च्युतिकथा रमा जाने यदि तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्य सम्पद्यस्तदिह मद कृत्वा दशमिनां प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रदिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकथा
रमा जाने जाने यदिह तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यस्तदिह मत कृत्वा दशमिनाम् प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रतिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिगत कथा रमा जाने जाने यदिह तव भक्तेषु विभवो न सद्यः सम्पद्यस्तदिह मत कृत्वा दशमिनाम् प्रशान्तिं कृत्वैव प्रतिशसि ततः काममखिलं प्रशान्तेषु क्षिप्रं न खलु भवदीयेच्युतिकथा.
Stanza 2. In this chapter, a lot of times the tunes are going to change. So stanza 2 changes. Sadyah prasada rushitan vidishankaradhin kinchid vibho nijagunanugunam bhajantah bhrashta bhavanti bata kashtamadhirga drishtya spashtam vrikasura udaharanam kilasmin. So kind of continuing what we just said last the previous stanza also. So this is a lot of these gods, are very easy to please, but also very easy to anger also, or to make them angry or upset, right? So he says, you see examples of Ravana. So Ravana was a big Shiva devotee, and then he had all the power, but what did he do? He went and tried to lift Kailasha itself and tried to dislodge Shiva, right? Same thing happened with Bana, right? Bana, we saw the story, he was a big Shiva devotee, but he said, Shiva, I want you to be my guardian of my kingdom. I want you to come and be my protect my kingdom. That's the work you have to do, right? So they kind of take advantage of that. And so in that context, he says, I'm going to tell you the story about this person called as Vrikasura. So that's why Vrikasura Udaharanam. I'm going to give you an example of, there are two stories which are going to come in this chapter. One is about Vrikasura. So Sadhyaha, put a F, Sadhyah Prasada Rushitan Vidhi Shankaradhin, Kechit Vibho Nija Gunanugunam Bhajantaha Bhrashta Bhavanti Bata Kashtam Adhirga Drishtya, Spashtam Vrikasura Udaharanam Kilasmin. Sadyah Prasada Rushitan Vidhi Shankaradhin केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमधीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्.
सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्. सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगणं केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्.
Rajesh, a quick question. இது வந்து என் புக்ல வந்து கேச்சதுன்னு கொடுத்திருக்கு. அது கேச்சிதா கேச்சிதா?
See, the individual word is kechit, it, first ta, and then vibho, okay? But when the rules are there where the it and v and all are coming, it becomes a da. So you write it as kechit vibho, okay? So it becomes a da, first da, because it is joined together. But the individual word is kechit, it only.
Okay.
सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद्विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्. सद्यः प्रसादरुषितान् विधिशङ्करादीन् केचिद् विभो निजगुणानुगुणं भजन्तः भ्रष्टा भवन्ति बत कष्टमदीर्घदृष्ट्या स्पष्टं वृकासुर उदाहरणं किलास्मिन्.
Just one more stanza and we stop. Small one. Shaku nijaha put is satu naradam ekada, comma, tvarita tosham aprichat adishwaram. If you want to break it. Tosham aprichat adishwaram. Sacha didesha girisham upasitum, comma, natu bhavantam abandhum asadushu. Just breaking it into three. Bhavantam abandhum asadushu. Just a quick thing. So this person called the Asura called Vrikasura. So he wants to know, he wants to get more powerful and strong. So he goes to Narada and says, I want to become super powerful and strong. Who should I pray to? Because I want instant results. So Narada says, if you want instant results and you want to get things, the best person to talk to pray is to Ashutoshi, Shiva. So you please go meditate on him because you'll immediately get whatever you want. So that's what is happening here. So this also, the tune changes slightly different. शकुनिजस्सतु नारदमेकधा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरं स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु.
शकुनिजस्सतु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरम् स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु. शकुनिजस्सतु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरम् स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तुमबन्धुमसाधुषु.
न तु भवन्तं, on the last line, भवन्तं.
न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु.
शकुनिजस्सतु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरं स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु. शकुनिजस्सतु नारदमेकदा त्वरिततोषमपृच्छदधीश्वरं स च दिदेश गिरीशमुपासितुं न तु भवन्तमबन्धुमसाधुषु.
परब्रह्मणे नमः. End the class here. सान्द्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावदेभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां. कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you everybody.
Rajesh, a quick question. And the last third one நீங்க chant பண்ணியல்ல, what tune is that? நம்ம பழசுல படிச்சது what?
Let me see.
Samanosmritana note பண்ணிப்பேன்.
Samanosmritatavakang. Yeah, that's the tune.
திருப்பி சொல்லுங்க. Sorry, I didn't.
Samanosmritatavakangri-yugmah. Samano. I don't know. Yeah, that's the tune.
அந்த மூணு டியூனை தான் நான் ஞாபகம் வச்சுப்பேன்.
I think this chapter has all three. It just, I think, keeps circling between those three because of the chandas. So,
Yeah.
okay. Right, thank you. 89 was a long chapter, but I think there are so many things happening in 89. We should do some justice to, the work that has been put in there, right?
So 89 ராகமாலிகன்னு நினைவு வச்சுக்கணும்.
I'm sorry, I meant 86, the Mahabharata thing. I meant in terms of the amount of content that was covered there, right? So,
Rajesh, where do you get all your answers from?
Encyclopedia is a walking encyclopedia.
Yeah, I seriously.
The superset is Bhagavatam, right? You have to go and read the stories in Bhagavatam. That is a superset of majority of these things, right? Up to pretty much in the 89th chapter end varaikkum, whatever is there is from Bhagavatam, except for the first maybe 3 chapters of Narayaneeyam, right? So literally from chapter number 4 to 89, it's all from Bhagavatam.
Wow. Yeah, after this Narayaneeyam class, we'll have a Bhagavatam class.
Hey, Vasu, Devi Mahatmyam கேட்டுருக்கோம் இல்லையா? I don't know.
Vasu has finished Devi Mahatmyam.
அதனாலதான் my Devi Mahatmyam தான் next. So yeah,
Rama Rajeshi. Next.
we are ready.
I will see. All the Krishna, we need to see. Bhagavatam is one of those things where Krishna has to decide that, you know, we should do it, right? It's a very, very massive thing because Narayaneeyam is 1,000 stanzas. Bhagavatam is 18,000 stanzas. Just if you pick the Dashama Skandam, if you decide, let's learn Dashama Skandam, which is where all these Krishna things happen, that itself is 9,000 stanzas, right? So it is extremely big. Or close enough. It's almost 45% of entire Bhagavatam is Dashama Skandam, where all the Krishna related things are there. So at a minimum, you know, like if we start already, we'll only do that. We will not have the lifetime to learn, right? We'll have lifetime, but you have to dedicate yourself to that.
மட்டும் எடுத்துக்கலாம் ராஜேஷ் தஷ்மஸ்கந்தம்.
Yeah.
முடிச்சிட்டு we'll think.
Super. Rajesh has said he's going to think, so that means
Yeah,
it's
that means Krishna has agreed.
Devi Mahatmyam, please.
This time is dedicated for you.
Hey, you know what, Shobha? Rajesh is capable of doing Devi Mahatmyam as well as Bhagavatam.
Hey, you are
absolutely.
இந்த பில்லு நாங்க தான்.
We'll see what is destined, you know. So
Thank you.
But Rajesh, one thing I was thinking, we are really fortunate to learn from you.
Of course.
Nijamaave we felt that. I was so fortunate that I was able to attend that 86th chapter. Avlo alaga kadaigalam neenga vandu I am not able to explain, but I felt really fortunate to learn from you. Thank you.
Because at the end of the day, right, all of these things, even if you whether you chant or not chant also, I think the point in all of these things is to say that this is what you have to understand, the God who you're praying to, how great that person is and how that person has helped everybody, right? Because a lot of times we also, we lose confidence, we lose faith, right? And we say, you know what, I'm going through all these problems, nothing is working out for me. But we should always realize that we are not the first person, right? There have been so many yugas, so many thousands of years. Everybody, this world has seen all the same problems. What you're seeing is nothing, right? But it's at every point where needed, Bhagavan has come to help his devotees. So that faith is extremely important. That's what all these things also say. That's why it's important. Even Krishna also said, you just hear to my stories. Even if you don't chant, even if you don't pray, you just hear. So that's why I think the story is also important, because at least hearing that itself is a blessing, right?
Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
So much.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.